Hey guys, welcome to Topical. Nate here, and today I'm doing over or under for 1990s movies, where Strange Wang off camera is going to give me a 90s movie, and I'm going to say if I think it's overrated or underrated, and a little bit of why.
Fight Club.
It's going to break my heart to say this. I think Fight Club might be a little overrated, but just a little bit. Fight Club has had a very special place in my and Strange Wang's understanding of what film can do and what it can be for a very, very long time. And then, so there are people who watch Fight Club and they dissect it and they appreciate it and they look at what you can do with character and plot and good writing and like cool things you can do with the camera and stuff like that. And yeah, you can throw this random scene that takes place inside some dude's mind where a penguin is sliding down some ice in a movie, and it's freaking dope. And how you can use music in a movie to evoke certain emotions and all that stuff. But then there's just still that like specific group of people that likes Fight Club for all the wrong reasons, and sometimes they seem to be the loudest. So just because of those people, I think Fight Club's just a little bit overrated.
Lost. I feel like this movie is lost when it comes to the Batman films. There's just so many of them now. It gets lost in the shuffle. Batman Returns.
That movie's underrated. I love Batman Returns. I love how weird it is. Freaking Danny DeVito, and they're just eating a whole freaking raw fish, getting after it. Yeah, it's a really, really strange movie, but it is incredibly interesting to me. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, to me, one of the greatest castings of all time. Absolutely incredible. Definitely gets overshadowed by the Nolan trilogy. I feel like in this day and age, it gets overshadowed by the whole, oh, is Ben Affleck going to be Batman again? I don't like Robert Pattinson. He doesn't look like Batman to me. And like all this other stupid shit. Just like, dude, we're getting Batman movies. Shut up. Like, but Batman Returns is incredible. Excellent follow-up to 89. And it's just kind of a shame that the turn those movies took after that.
I feel like with the aesthetic of most moody girls from the age of 16 to 22, this should be a cult classic. They should be making t-shirts and merch for this movie. And it is Empire Records.
Oh, okay.
Like, that movie just feels like this generation so much, but no one's seen it, to me.
Empire Records is definitely underrated. I love Empire Records. To me, it's like... I would say it's like a 90s version of Breakfast Club. But it is absolutely, like... way heavy on like the countercultural aspect, but even though all the kids are part of some subsect of counterculture, they're all parts of a different sect of countercultural, so they still have like enough differences like to where the whole like Breakfast Club thing works. So it's just like this one day in the life of these kids that worked at a record store, and how they grow closer together through it, how they help each other get through some stuff. You got some banging music in it, and a really, really fun plot of them trying to save the record store, which kind of ends in a way that you would almost expect an 80s movie to end, with this like unexpected thing that just saves the day, and then you all have like a big dance party at the end, basically. But Empire Records is great. If you have not seen Empire Records, you should go watch Empire Records. It is maybe the most underrated movie that's probably going to be on today's list.
Wow. IMDb said this is the greatest movie of all time. Shawshank Redemption. That's sort of numero uno.
Well, that makes it overrated. Shawshank Redemption is not the greatest movie of all time. It is an incredibly good movie. Definitely top 15 movies of all time. It is way up there in the history of film, but like... it's fine. Like, Shawshank Redemption is fine. It is. There are very, very few things wrong with it. But to me, it is just missing this almost like indescribable or intangible, like little bit of oomph that really made me get invested and care about these characters. So if we're going to talk about Shawshank Redemption being called the greatest movie of all time, then I'm going to say it's overrated. Not everyone does that, so in reality, it's probably perfectly rated.
I'm surprised this isn't the hipster version of Fight Club with how big the mental health boom has came about the last 10 years. And it is Good Will Hunting.
Huh. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Because in my head, someone watched this and they're like, oh, I know so much about mental health now.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting, definitely probably one of the like earliest movies that's about like seeing a therapist, that where the therapist isn't like this really dumb trope of like, oh, sit on the couch and tell me about your parents. In fact, it actually pokes fun at that specific joke. I guess I have to say perfectly rated. I mean, I feel like what Good Will Hunting gets its props. In my personal view, it deserves more. I think that movie's incredible. I love Good Will Hunting. It's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Robin Williams, incredible. Ben Affleck, incredible. Matt Damon, incredible. Minnie Driver, incredible. Everyone in this movie. Skarsgård's great in it. This movie has great lines. And it is like, to me, one of the few really emotional movies that still holds its rewatchability because of how funny and like witty some of the dialogue in it is. So I'm gonna say it's just a little bit underrated.
Honestly surprised by your answer on that one. Next, we have Strange Wang's favorite film of all time, A Bronx Tale.
I think A Bronx Tale's a little underrated. I think it pops up on like a fair amount of greatest of all times list, especially if you're stretching to like the 50-100 range. But The Bronx Tale is a mob movie, and it just gets so overshadowed by, Godfather, Goodfellas, which like objectively are better movies, but people want the underbelly, the dark, dirty side of the mob movies. And this is like a more of a wholesome, like, I guess in a way, Goodfellas is a coming of age movie.
They both are.
But A Bronx Tale definitely is. And you get more of a wholesome side to it. And I really appreciate little Colungelo's character development through this movie. And I don't think it gets talked about enough in that genre as it should.
Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World.
Yeah, I think that movie's perfectly rated. It's not very good. I was thankfully at an age when that movie came out where I didn't really care if a movie was good or not. Like, it had dinosaurs. It had one of the best characters from the first Jurassic Park back in the movie. As an adult, I could see that now it's kind of a butchering of that character, and the whole like gymnastics bit with the raptors is stupid. But that movie still gave us an insanely sick scene where they're going through like the really high field, and you could see the lines that the raptors are making as they're closing in on people. That is the best shot of that movie, the best part of that movie. Everything else, not so good. I do think the whole like trailers falling off the cliff scene is incredibly tense and really well shot. So that movie has some good things about it. They get overshadowed by how overall not good the movie is. But everyone knows the movie isn't that good. Everyone says the movie isn't that good. And it isn't that good. So it's perfectly rated.
Side question. Is that Spielberg's worst film, in your opinion?
It probably is.
Because the only other one I'm thinking of is Indy 4.
Yeah. I really, really don't like Jurassic World 2.
He didn't direct that.
Oh, well, then there you go. So, yeah, it probably is. I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and look at all of Spielberg's movies, but it probably is.
This one has recently... It went from hated to love. And that is Star Wars, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I think Phantom Menace is perfectly rated. I think it has just hit that point where it's like we all know it's not really a good movie, but like for what it is, when it was, it's like so much fun. Like Phantom Menace to me is one of the most rewatchable Star Wars movies because Star Wars is just kind of becoming this thing of like specific scenes, specific characters, specific ships, which in Star Wars are basically characters. Those are becoming more important. I guess I should say how you handle those things are becoming more important than like the actual story of Star Wars to most people. And so even though we can acknowledge that Phantom Menace has a lot of issues, has some script issues, it's got some acting issues, there are some things that are in it that just don't need to be or don't make sense. It still gave us Darth Maul. It still gave us Ewan McGregor for the first time as Obi-Wan. It still gave us pod racing, which is freaking sick. Like, so many good things came from that movie. There are plenty of bad things that came from that movie as well. But, like, overall, there were just, like, a lot of really great additions to the Star Wars universe that came from Phantom Menace. And I love that people are starting to appreciate it now. So, I think it's perfectly rated.
Cape Fear. I forgot to put the 60s one on the 60s list.
Oh, nice.
And I beat myself up about it when I was editing. So I had to make sure Cape Fear was on this list.
Yeah, there's maybe some like recency bias in my answer to this question because like I was telling him earlier, I just listened to a podcast today where people were talking about the 90s Cape Fear. And it just really ticked me off. This movie is so overrated. Like, I feel like people trump it up because it's Scorsese. I feel like people trump it up because it's Bob De Niro. The thing that ticked me off the most from after listening to these people talk about how good this movie was for a while was them saying that they really believed and thought that Robert De Niro's Southern accent was good. I have lived in the South my whole life. Okay. The people who were talking about this, I don't know if they've ever even been to the South. Because that Southern accent is trash. It does not sound right coming out of that man's mouth. It does not look right coming out of that man's mouth. Robert De Niro is one of the greatest actors of all time. I will never, ever try to dispute that with anyone. This was entirely miscast. I know Scorsese loves working with him. He doesn't hold a candle to Robert Mitchum's Max Cady. He is not nearly as menacing. He is not nearly as scary. Like, this movie, because it's in the 90s, like, I feel like it pulls punches sometimes compared to the 60s version. And I don't like, generally, being like the remake was, like, way better, or this one was better because it came out first. I'm not the kind of guy that does that. I don't mind most movies being remade. Cape Fear did not need to be remade. Gregory Peck's original version is an incredible movie. It is tense. It is terrifying. Robert Mitchum is freaking terrifying in that movie. It is the only Cape Fear we need, and probably the only one I'm ever going to watch again. I could go the rest of my life without ever hearing about Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear again.
Max Cady cast as Leonardo DiCaprio, directed by David Fincher. I would watch that Cape Fear.
Yeah, I would watch it more out of curiosity than anything else, but
Leo was he had a decent accent in Django.
And showed that he could be like a very like calculate.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's kind of doing
he
a lot
manipulated
of the calculating
him,
for him, but like I think Leo could do, if you combine that with like Jordan Belfort or something like that kind of character, I could see Leo doing it.
That'd be sick.
But
dude.
the thing is I don't think that I could. Leo is so likable. Like, De Niro's played enough scumbags to where,
what about Brad Pitt?
No, he's just, like, too charming and, like, fun. Like, it's just really hard for me
I think that would work.
You have to be afraid of Max Cady. Like, you have to be afraid of him. And I don't think I would be afraid of Leo or Brad Pitt. So.
Interesting. Fargo.
I don't know. I think Fargo's perfectly rated. It definitely got talked. It definitely got talked about a lot more 10 years ago than it does now, because we have like this kind of like quirky, offbeat style of movie has become more common. So it's not as much of a rarity as it was when Fargo came out. But I think Fargo still gets its props. I mean, it introduced a lot of people to Frances McDormand, who is one of the greatest actresses of like the last 20, 30 years. And she's incredible in it. And, oh man, William H. Macy. He is also incredibly good in that movie. And how many movies do you see where it's like you really remember William H. Macy's performance? For me, it's Fargo. But yeah, it's like, it's fun, it's thrilling, it's gripping, but it has just enough of that like Coen offbeat, just oddness to give it its really own individual and like unique vibe. So Fargo is excellent. I hope that people still remember Fargo and talk about Fargo, and it doesn't get lost in all of their movies and all the other movies that have kind of like sort of adopted the vibe. But for right now, I think it's perfectly rated.
Lastly, The Green Mile.
The Green Mile is overrated. And I think more and more people are coming to that realization. But The Green Mile is kind of cheesy. Like, it's a little corny. And I understand why it worked for audiences in the 90s. The Green Mile almost has like this Forrest Gumpy vibe to it. And it's not just because Tom Hanks is in it, but it's just like, it's a little overly sentimental. And as time goes on, I think that is costing it a lot of points. It's still a good movie. I like The Green Mile, but I think it is pretty overrated, actually. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What I get wrong? What I get right? What do you think the most over or underrated movie from the 1990s is? Scroll back up, hit the like button, and subscribe.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.